live and direct from the Territorial Defense Forces media studios in Kyiv. Before we begin with our regularly scheduled news, I would like to bring you a special announcement from our Territorial Defense Forces media production studio. Today we released Beyond the Peace, a 30-minute documentary that is focused on the survivors and resistance fighters of the Bucha area who, under intense occupation and horrific acts against them by the Russian Federation soldiers and war criminals, managed to not only stay alive, but to fight back and to show the collective soul of the Ukrainian people in the face of the devastating and deadly acts of the Russian occupiers. Go to TDF Media Studios at YouTube to view for free the 30-minute episode of Beyond the Peace, an original documentary brought to you by Territorial Defense Forces Media Productions. And something also interesting about the show, the movie, it has been presented to war crimes investigators and has been accepted as proof of atrocities that have taken place in the Kyiv region. Moving on to the war itself and the acts of aggression by the Russian Federation against Ukraine, we understand that breaking news earlier today from the Center of National Resistance stated that in the Kursk region of Russia, Vladimir Putin is planning to instigate a nuclear catastrophe at the Kursk Nuclear Power Plant, and in doing so, utilize that as a false flag attack to attempt to extend and amplify the war against both Ukraine and our NATO partners. While we have become aware of this plot, we do recommend to all those to pay close attention to everything that the Russian war criminals are attempting to do in order to make up for their failings on the battlefield. Speaking of the Russian failings on the battlefield, make no mistake about it, Ukraine is advancing in the south and in the east, and in the north, in Kupiansk's direction, where Russia had amassed more than 100,000 troops, our defensive lines are holding. Ultimately, despite us being outnumbered, and as President Zelensky discussed last night on his visit to the Donetsk Oblast, where we are short on ammunition according to some soldiers, having issues with military evacuations as well, and problems with our military medical commissions, we are still continuing to win this war of liberation. And so there will be no compromise. President Zelensky's 10-point peace formula and the full liberation of Ukraine are the only scenarios under which this war will end. Ultimately, we will return Ukraine to its 1991 borders that are internationally recognized by sovereign nations across the globe. Speaking of issues of sovereignty, the rule of law is a key component to every functioning democracy. We have news in the anti-corruption drive. Yesterday, Major General of the SBU was sentenced to 12 years in prison for treason against the people of Ukraine. And then this morning, a multi-agency bust of National Guard troops, officers specifically from the Kyiv region, 3rd Battalion, were found to have embezzled 14 million hryvnia from the combat bonus funds. At this point, at least 5 officers have been arrested. Ultimately, we understand that this is not just about a war on the battlefield, one which we are winning, but a war of winning the future for the people of Ukraine. And because of this, our civilian leaders and our military commanders are making certain to carry out this two-front attack in order to guarantee that the peace that is found after victory is a lasting one. Slava Ukraini! God bless the nation, our troops, our pilots, our sailors, and most importantly, the Ukrainian people, as we move towards another day of victory and the full liberation.